If there's one thing for certain, it's that humans never learn their lesson. I'm going to show you why today. What we are seeing is, in fact, a repeat of history, but it's going to be magnified manyfold. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. You remember all the offshoring of jobs? I'm about to show you why it's actually going to be much worse than what we've seen over the last 10, 20, 30 years. There's a lot going on now today, and of course, we're seeing these new developments. More and more people are strained, they're stressed, they do not have the resources they did before. And you look at what are the options. You know it in your heart, you see it with your very eyes. They are going to inflate our currencies into nothing. Now, I talk about this all the time, and I warn the people closest to me to get ready, to understand what's actually happening, and then do your best to prepare. We can only do so much. But in this video, I'm going to talk about what's been going on. And then, of course, you can seek all the resources that I have for free on my channel and on my website so that you can be much better off, at least compared to the majority. Okay, let's get into it here. First things first. When we're looking at inflation, you got to understand there's different levels of inflation, right? It's not just the number that they give us on the news. But here's one example. Price inflation at every fast food restaurant in the US has far exceeded the CPI inflation since 2014. Prices at McDonald's have doubled since 2014, while official inflation data shows just 31% inflation. And it goes on to, discuss that. So you could see actual inflation 31% and look up the list, whichever, restaurant you want to look at. Now, obviously you could say, hey, just don't eat at McDonald's, don't eat at fast food. It's not good, and so on. That's fine. But it shows us what's happening. This is just one small piece of the total inflationary puzzle. What about this? Investors bet on further rise in US gasoline prices. If you take a measurement between oil prices and gasoline prices, I don't know if you've noticed this, but we can see that over time, the spread grows. It's not exactly precise, but let's be honest. We are here at what is not quite, but for, just recently, the price of oil was half of what it was at its absolute peak. And yet gasoline prices are absurd. They're absurd today. Whether you're in Canada or whether you're in certain parts of the US, hey, if you're in Texas, different story, but the prices have still gone up. If you're in Europe, my goodness, I feel bad for you. Now you could see that this is just another aspect. Well, here we go. Here we go with the US inflation. Video discs and other media. I didn't know that these were still being sold, but okay, apparently video discs, I guess they're talking about Blu-ray and DVD, plus 30%. All right. This is March 2024, people. Okay. Veterinarian services, legal services, outpatient hospital services, all of these things, you can see the services that have added up here, and people are heavily burdened. Okay, so you see where I'm going with this. It's like all these different things. It's not just, oh, I'm going to point my finger over there and that's the cause. They're the ones that keep raising the prices. It's everywhere. One of those other ones that's a huge one. Have you felt this? Your vehicle insurance. This is plus 22%. This is a year-over-year price increase, by the way, just to be clear. This is absurd. It's absurd because we're being told inflation is like 3%. What? Like, what is that 3%? I don't see anywhere. Now, of course, we have cars. And it's just saying that about 80% of new car buyers take out a loan, all right? That's pretty typical, right? Just like you would with your house, you could take out a loan for your car. Maybe you lease it, maybe you finance it, but regardless, we're talking about this. Folks with pristine credit might get a 5.5% rate on a new car. Buyers with an average credit score can expect to pay more like 9.7% for a pre-owned vehicle. Can you believe this? And so that's what's going on here. People are burdened by the debt. People are burdened by the debt, but it's not just the people. Hang in there. I'm going to show you something. And where does it all end up? Oh, we'll get there. True scale of U.S. retail bloodbath revealed how 5,500 shops have closed in just 1 year, and even big names like Walmart and Bed Bath & Beyond and Nike have suffered. So we're seeing this. 5,500 stores have closed. We've seen more. Okay, there's been instances where that has been more, and this is a trend that will continue. More and more retail establishments should never have been probably set up, but more will close down. Okay, so that shows us what's going on with the consumer. So now we're getting some evidence about the consumer. One example, Nike plans to lay off 740 employees. That's fine, but look, I want to be clear. They've been hiring like a considerable amount over the last several years. So when you're laying off a few hundred or even a few thousand, it's terrible for those people. But just, you got to give it, looking at the context to explain that. All right. So I just want to show you that that's the number of employees for Nike, 83,000. All right. We have the haves and the have-nots. I wanted to just switch the pages to show you this. Luxury real estate prices have just hit an all-time record. So some people are doing great. There's no question about that. And you could see it when you look at the debt to GDP ratio of advanced economies, 2000 versus 2024. This is a comparison showing us what has happened over the past, my goodness, quarter century. All right. So, of course, Japan on the top of the list there, but even countries, strong countries like Singapore have gone berserk. The US, where's everyone's favorite, Canada, you could see over 100% in their debt to GDP ratio. So understand that the debt is burdening people, but it's also burdening the government. And that's where things get funky. You see, how will we be able to get out of a mess of too much debt? Because you're not going to actually be able to pay that off, right? We know that. They don't pay debt off. It doesn't work like that. And you could have better leaders that come in and make better decisions. But the trajectory is there. You can't walk away from it. Maybe you get a period of time where things are better. The burden is let's say, lessened for a while, but you know what happens. The trend is set. And so what happens here, the only and likely end result is that they devalue the currency. And when they do this, they punish you even further. You see, we're going to hand you $2,000 a month. We're going to make sure that everything is A-okay, but of course, that only fuels the fire. And then it's 2,500, and then it's 3,000, and then they do this simply by monetizing the debt. And when they do that, it is a very, very dangerous precedent they set, because you can't walk that back. And where does that leave us? Let me show you two things. One being this: Wendy's is using Fresh AI, their AI, to automate the drive-through ordering. Wild to see. And you can look at it for yourself. I thought it did a decent job, because you can see what it's trying to say. And then probably there's somebody listening there, and if something screws up, then they can override it or whatever. It was slow. I think it was a little bit slow, but in the end, they'll get it right, because look, it's a list of items that you have there. You can customize that just like you would with a human. I mean, they're just taking your order, they're punching it down onto a screen. What's the difference? What is really the difference? So they're going to do that. AI, robotics, and automation are taking over, but it's not all bad. Okay, I wanted to show you this one. Her AI Cane, okay? So Google's AI predicts rare extreme weather events a week in advance and could save people from hazardous catastrophes. I think this is the one where they said it actually was successful at predicting one, so it's not just like theoretical. this is good. This is a good use of artificial intelligence, assuming that we're using other things as well, the traditional ways, put everything together. You know, when we get a group together, we can think better, we can do more, we can achieve more, right? Okay, that's a good example. But what happened here years ago with the giant sucking sound? Ross Perot talked about that the jobs got shipped offshore. Now the jobs will never come back. Many of them will simply be evaporated because of automation. So instead of necessarily, the guy turning the knob, they'll figure out a way to automate the process where that knob doesn't need to be turned at all. That's the difference between what we had previous. Okay, we're going from the horse and buggy, and now we're going to the car, the steam engine. Now that's different. Now what we're doing is we're actually streamlining different processes, and we're eliminating the need to conduct certain types of activities. You see, that's the difference. People say that, no, because now you're just going to have a job in AI. That isn't the case. First of all, AI today is not even AI, but perhaps we will get there. I think the computing power probably needs to go more and more. But what I'm trying to say here is that they are going into a time in which you won't have this ability to become that next thing unless you choose the very few things that are not going to be outsourced. It can't be, or at least it's more difficult to do this. But one by one, even the high paying positions, they're already targeting it. And ultimately, they are figuring out a way that's probably better in the end. What about lawyers? Really? They know, imagine a lawyer that knows everything, has studied every case, not just even in your own country, but all across the world. Every single case ever. And now you're able to pull data from that and say, hey, this obscure thing that happened back then, and this law that was put into place 100 years ago, I'm going to use that, and now that's my case. No lawyer can compete with that. You see, I'm just, trying to suggest what's going on. Look, if you want some information, if you want to be able to mitigate some of this, I've got free information on my website, themoneygps.com. I've got my playlists, how to and solutions. I've got another playlist called how to make money. I've got all kinds of information. I've got my Finance Friday crew. I've got my Sunday business crew. I'm telling people how to do the best that they possibly can. Whatever you do, just don't sit still. I'm trying to bring the latest and greatest information to you. If you appreciate that, hit that thumbs up button. You see all these other guys out there, they talk a lot of nonsense. What I'm trying to bring to you here is the truth. That's it. Always the truth, because the truth will prevail. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.